Hi, my name is Maya Douglas, and the topic that we will be discussing today in this video is a topic that I find very interesting and I'm very passionate about. So today we'll be talking about food deserts. And food deserts are areas around the world where people living in poverty don't have access to grocery stores and supermarkets, and therefore they don't have access to healthier and cleaner food. I wanted to shine a light on how food deserts relate to racism, so I brought in a few of my friends to talk about how they felt about it, and I shared with them how the majority of people in food deserts are the minorities like blacks and Latinas. So I felt like it had something that they tied together some way, and I wanted to see how they felt about it, and I wanted to get their opinion. So here's my roundtable discussion with Cami, Amani, Sanjana, and Carissa. What's your own definition of it?
My definition of a food desert is like an area, like a kind of large area where there's not a lot of food like available, where there's not like a ton of grocery stores or a ton of places where the people in that area can get food.
That's pretty good.
That's really good.
Amani, what do you think a food desert is?
Like a place that doesn't have a lot of food supply.
Right.
Yeah. It doesn't have access to a lot of food.
Right.
Yeah, that's what she said.
What she said. Okay. Carissa.
Yeah, I got that. I'm sorry.
Point blank. Okay. So by definition, a food desert is an area that has limited access to affordable and nutritious food, in contrast with an area with higher access to supermarkets or vegetable shops with fresh food, which is called a food oasis. Or when you think like these big businesses leave and aren't attracted to these neighborhoods?
I think it's because
Nobody buys their things, so then they move away and then get them.
It's because they're low income areas, so the big supermarket chains, the places that have the like more nutritious food is usually higher priced, and the people in these poorer areas cannot afford that food. They can just afford like fast food and not like more nutritious food. Like they can't afford like organic grass-fed food. They have to get the cheaper food, so the places with the more nutritious food, they would not have good business there.
Yes. And going off of what you said, Cami, actually in AP Human Geography, we learned about this thing, and it's called hierarchical diffusion, and it's where it goes. Now I know this is learning stuff. Anyways, so it's like when something goes from a bigger area to a smaller area, and so when things are low income, they're like last to get what places like New York or Los Angeles will get first. So like that includes like big grocery stores, places like Whole Foods. Wally just got a Wegmans. We're not getting a Wegmans till later, even though like we might be high income, we're still a small town. So it goes in like order of importance and population and income.
Yeah, what is Wegmans?
Okay, so you know how I lived in Maryland? Wegmans is like Publix and Whole Foods combined. So it's like it's affordable, but it gets like locally sourced milk, cheese, all that type of stuff. It's good, fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. Now think about this, educated guess. Who do you think is mainly affected by food deserts?
People of minority, people of color.
Okay.
Yeah.
People that don't make a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, like low-income people in general.
Okay. Amani, what you think?
People that don't make a lot.
I'm gonna give you a few quotes. It's gonna help you think about a different side that Carissa touched on. Okay. A study completed in 2002 found that supermarkets, which had a larger, healthier variety of food, was most often found in wealthy white communities, whereas in poorer black communities had only small corner grocery stores, which often offered a small and higher priced number of healthy options. The disparity between the majority white population and the minority population was also discussed in a research study conducted by Augusta State University. And the researchers found that grocery stores located in urban areas had higher priced, lower value food choices. Okay. And these neighborhoods are oftentimes the furthest from healthy food options and the closest to fast food restaurants. It is difficult to understand why there has been such inequality and racial segregation between African American communities and non-African American communities. I just wanted to let you know. So like my point of view on it is like people who make low income are usually like, so you know how like there's more expensive houses and then like less expensive houses, and the more expensive houses are obviously only in one area. So usually if you make low income, you live in one area. So like all the low income people live in one area, then all the wealthier people live in another area. But it's like the main people who live in the low income areas are like minorities, so blacks, Latinas, all that stuff, and then white people over here. And it's like, what do you think the reason for this is? Do you think it's like job opportunities and racism in that area, or something else? What do you think?
I think it's, in America, minorities don't like have the same opportunities as white people, and it's just like that's just like a fact. There's been like studies on it, and they usually make less. The graduation rate is lower, and just things like throughout their lifetime that have led them to not maybe make as much as they were able to, or as they're like as other people who are not minorities.
Okay, so like low income areas, and they're populated with for minorities because they get like less education. Less education leads to less job opportunities, which leads to less income. And so, it's just, I don't know, it's like
Minorities are second choice.
Second tier.
So it's like people find jobs in the area that they live in. If they live in a low, if they live in a low-income area, they're gonna have jobs with low income. And if you have a job with low income, you can't get a job outside of that area, because getting a job outside of that area requires for you to have money to get to that area, whether it's a car or public transportation or Uber, whatever it is. Like, it requires money to get there. So it's like they stay in that area, and then there's just no food.
Right.
But then there's also examples of food deserts that don't occur in low income areas, or because of racial things. Like, I don't mean to flex on y'all, but when I was younger, I used to live in a big house. Living in a big house means there's a lot of spaces in between houses. We were like 4 miles from civilization. That is technically a food desert. But it was high income. It was lots of white people, mostly white people. We were the only black people in the neighborhood, now that I think about it. But it was still not like grocery stores. So it's just, I think it's mainly racism and mainly income, but it's also just because, it also could be because of population and where you're situated. Like, it was in Georgia, no one cares.
Right. I understand what you mean. Not trying to cut you off, but food desert is when it's like 10 miles away. So I guess like I've been in one of those situations too, where it's like I live in the deep country, so one of it's like, but I don't know. I guess food deserts deal with more like money things as well. Yeah. I'll get to that point. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that like the definition of a food desert, like the like, what do you call it? The like, I don't know. It changes based on like, you said there was like less people there, so it's a food desert, and it changes based on like population stuff. So it's like different if you live more spaced out. But that's all honestly. But also like, I know what you're saying. I used to live in like a place where it's like all the houses were like a mile apart, because they're all each on like an acre land, and it was like far apart. But I wouldn't have considered it like a food desert, because there was food available. You just had to like drive 3 miles.
Amani, what you thinking?
The same idea. Yeah.
Okay. Let's think. Okay, how do you think people fall into poverty? Do you think it's something that just oopsie daisies, or do you think it's because of like life choices, or why is like the main people you see in poverty Black people? Not saying that white people are in poverty, because that's not true, because some white people are in poverty, but the main ones you see are Black people. Why do you think that?
Did you want to go first? You go first. I think it does largely have to do with like what you're born into. So like if you're born in a low income neighborhood, like your whole life your parents would like struggle to get food on the table. You go to a school that maybe doesn't give you the best education, and just like not in a great area, then it's less likely for you to just like make higher income than like what you're used to, I guess. Like if you grow up in like a poor neighborhood and you go to a not great school, you're in like, I don't know, there's, I think what you're born into definitely has a lot of
To do with it? A lot
to do with it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like that, and like immigrants, and when you immigrate, you can't take all of your wealth with you, especially if you're coming from a lower wealth country, like someplace in Africa, or someplace in India, or in Ireland, you know? When you immigrate, you can't bring all that stuff, and so you naturally fall into a low, like, income area, and you stay in that area until someone in your family like makes it, and most times people don't make it, and they say in like lower education systems, and there will get less jobs, and so sorry, so yeah, it's definitely what you're born into and like what you grow up around, but I also think that it has a lot to do with life choices, because you could very easily be born into a bad neighborhood and a bad family and immigrate and move across like nations and still come out on top. You can still live in a nice area like here, you can still make a lot of money. So it's like, it's not what you get, it's what you make out of it, you know? So, yeah.
I agree, because I feel like what you're born into does have something to do with it, but it's up to you to like hop out of that hole. Like you got to dig your way out of being born into poverty the best as you can. And I feel like some people just got trapped in being okay with it, or trapped in just it's overwhelming, so they didn't dig themselves out of that hole to not now live in poverty, which is something, it's tough, and it's like a lifetime thing to really work up to. But I don't think a lot of it is racially acquitted, like just Black people are going to be in poverty because this is this. I don't think it's like that. I think it's what you do with what you have.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. Like, I agree with what you said too, but you said like very easily someone could do that. I don't think.
I didn't mean to say very easily.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree with what you
totally
said, like
that.
completely except that part. So, like it is possible, but sometimes people just can't do it. Like if you come from like a low income area, you obviously don't have the same opportunities, and based off your race sometimes you don't have the same opportunities, like just your area, just a bunch of different factors. Some are in your control, some are out of them. You may have more or less opportunities than other people. Sometimes it's just like luck or bad luck sometimes. Like, yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, so I think it's good that we highlighted both points of views, and now I want to talk about what can we do to help people in food deserts, because like, okay, as we talked about, it's already people in minorities, so they already have like secondhand opportunities, and it's like most people in food deserts don't even have cars, so it's like they have to take like 6 buses to get 10 miles to get to a grocery store, and most grocery stores are like corner stores that sell more expensive food, so they're already in they already have low income. Now they're wasting money on like stuff they need that could be less expensive at a bigger chain store. So what do you think, like our government or us, maybe we could even do on both sides of the spectrum, like the government, and then what could we do to help people in those situations?
The government should move the grocery stores closer to the neighborhoods where the people low income are there, so it's easier for them to get what they need than waste money on transportation.
They can't just move the
Yeah.
grocery store.
Yeah.
Build more.
No,
Not
because
move, like
the
build
companies
more.
aren't controlled by the government because it's capitalism in America. So like that would be great, but it's not very possible. The companies themselves would have to make that decision, and even if they did, it would maybe not be the best decision financially.
Yeah.
But our government could definitely do things to make it so that to like maybe even lift up lower income areas to make it like a little bit more income, or just something. Just I don't really know. I don't know.
This is probably gonna sound like low-key stupid,
Okay.
but I'm thinking like some high-tech stuff. Like we have government-influenced grocery stores in those low-income areas, and since they're in low-income areas, I'm not gonna be like everyone's on food stamps, but there's probably a good portion of them that are. So if we were to, I don't know, it really sounds stupid in my head, but like make it digital and make it so like everyone in that area on food stamps goes to that store and they get the food and they pay for the food with their little stampy card, which I know that's not how food stamps work, but like I feel like if I were in control, I would make it that way because it's easier.
What are you saying to make stuff like digital?
Well, to bounce off of that, I think it'd be cool if like you had a food stamp card like you're talking about, like one singular card, but like they brought the groceries to you,
Yeah.
and like you kind of pay with it with your card, cause like you already don't have a car, so they brought the groceries to you, and then you like or something, you know what I mean? Cause you already getting food stamps, so it should be something government funded that you're getting too.
Yeah, because also not everyone on food stamps is like able-bodied, so
Right.
they can't walk, they can't drive. So it's sort of inconvenient if they have to get up and go out of their house every time they need food. And
Right.
plus that means if they're like taking public transportation, you can't buy a whole bunch of or like a month's worth of groceries and then bring it back on the butt.
I would like to thank Cami, Sanjana, Carissa, and Amani for helping me on this topic and providing their insight. And hopefully this video gets you thinking about how you can help people in food deserts and gets you thinking about what food deserts really are and how they're created. Thank you.